gentlemen, it is the pre-described time. It is 9 a.m. Thursday morning. Quite the audience this morning. Everybody's here. Really excited. We got Shannon Keel here, everybody. And we got Jesse Wadham sitting over there. Aside from that, that's about it. So it's all business this morning. So I'm going to call to order the regular business meeting of the Reno Sparks Convention Visitors Authority Board of Directors meeting for Thursday, June 27th. It is 9 a.m. And Madam Clerk, can I get let's see, we're going to do Pledge of Allegiance first. Sorry, I'm not even following my own schedule. So, Mr. Vice Chair, will you lead us?
Yes, please join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We've got one more spectator. Molly's welcome. Welcome, Molly. Good morning. Good to see you here. Madam Clerk, can we get a roll call for our Board of Directors that are here, please?
Thank you. Mr. Caroselli? Here. Mr. Dillard? Here. Mr. Lawson? Here. Mr. Lucy?
Here.
Ms. Silver?
Here.
Mr. Sturbins? Here. Mr. Wood?
Here. Thank you, Madam Clerk. We have a quorum this morning. All right, we are on to item B, which is public comment. This public comment is for anybody who can make, for public is limited to 3 minutes. And public is encouraged to make any comments on or off the agenda. Seeing that I have no public comment, going once, twice, 3 times, going to close public comment, bring it back to the board. All right, looking for an approval of the agenda. I have a motion from Mr. Caroselli.
Second.
Second from Mr. Sturbins. Sorry, I got 2 right there where we missed Mr. Sturbins. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. All right, we're on to item D, approval of the minutes for the May 23rd, 2019 Board of Directors regular meeting. Are there any? We have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a second from Mr. Dillard. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. All right, we are on to section E, presentation. So, Mr. Kennedy, will you take us into E1, please?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. As the board may be aware, the board seat currently occupied by Mr. Murdoch, his term expires at the end of this month. That seat is appointed by the Nevada Resort Association. The Nevada Resort Association has nominated Ms. Shannon Keel to replace Mr. Murdoch. This would be a 2-year term commencing July 1. As always, this item is open for discussion by the entire board, but is voted on by the elected officials only. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. And I'd like everybody to turn in their packet. There was a letter submitted to us from the Nevada Resort Association from Virginia Valentine in accordance with our rules that we've kind of abided by here with all of our board seats. We do ask all of our associations and organizations to submit at least 2 names. They did submit 2 names in a letter, but their recommendation was for Ms. Shannon Keel. So with that, I'll take any discussion at this time. Mr. Caroselli.
Shannon is very well qualified, and I think she's been a lot of authority, so I would say she would get my vote for sure.
Great. All right. Ms. Silver? No? Oh, okay. All right. Seeing no further discussion, this is obviously a vote for just by the electeds. I will make the motion to select Shannon Keel to replace Rick Murdoch on the NRA board seat. You want to second that?
Yeah, I'm going to second. Because, I just thought about it. If I didn't, then it would die, right?
Right, that's exactly right. There's just 2 of us here today.
I'm seconding it.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Welcome, Ms. Keel. Welcome, Ms. Keel, to the board. So Ms. Keel will join us on July 1st, and so she will be at our July meeting, and we wish Mr. Murdoch all the thanks and time that he served on the board. He's been a great member, and he'll sorely be missed. All right, we're moving on. Item E2, this is RSCVA board appointment for the Reno Sparks Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors seat pursuant to NRS 244A601. Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Ann Silver was appointed to the board, I believe, back in March to serve out the remainder of Vic Wowo's term. That term expires this month. The chamber has nominated Ms. Silver to serve a 2-year term commencing July 1.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. And so as pursuant to, in accordance to what we are usually doing with reappointments, we don't ask for it in multiple names, so this is just another, so any discussion, but Ms. Silver has served, and we're glad to have her on the board. So I'll make the motion to reappoint Ms. Silver to the Chamber of Commerce seat.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. All right, thank you very much. We are on to item, yeah, welcome back. Welcome to your continued servitude.
Yes, servitude.
We are on to item E3. Mr. Wadhams, this is our legislative report. Please tell us how wonderful Carson City was for the last 4 months of your life.
Thank you, Chair. Again, Jesse Wadhams for the record, and yes, Carson City was lovely, although, again, as I pointed out to somebody, it was a very weird session, and I didn't even mention to you guys that Adele's burned down, so that changes the whole dynamic of a legislative session. No, it's a place for meeting and more camaraderie and esprit de corps, as I think they say. So fortunately, actually, we met and talked at the end of May, which led into the last 2 weeks of session. So the broad policies that we spoke about in the last meeting are really kind of stayed roughly the same, and I'll come back to a few of those bills to highlight. The closeout of the legislative session, I think, was unique in this particular session, just because of the politics and the dynamics of a modified business tax component that kind of changed how the budget got funded. So we may or may not see a special session depending on whether or not there is a court case challenge to how the modified business tax went through, which really probably doesn't impact this board particular, but I think it's the broader component of there is maybe a look at the whole biennial budget for the next couple of years if that court case were to be successful and knock out about $100 million in funding. So a couple other things that happened in the last moments of the legislative session. The Reno Rodeo did get $1 million in a budget line item for planning and essentially sort of a pre-review of a possible remodel to that facility. That was included in a number of other smaller budget items that popped really with about 48 hours left in the legislative session. So it just dropped in there and moved very quickly. So a couple of the bills that I think are more specific to this entity, I mentioned these last time, but I think the ones that are really important. SB 287, that was a bill from Senator David Parks with regard to public records. The compliance with public records now is going to have some enforcement mechanisms, so there's going to be actual penalties that come involved if you're not compliant with these things. The other interesting thing about that is it also you now have to guide the person who is requesting the information. You have to kind of help them along and say, oh, you requested this particular budget item, but that doesn't really exist, so maybe you were thinking of this. I think it's going to be a little bit more of a time-intensive process for some of these public records requests. SB 388, also a public records bill. This one takes out any personally identifiable information and mandates that cannot be disclosed. So it kind of conflicts with the idea that we're going to have everything as public record, but try to pull certain things back out by law. So as we start to develop the policy around public records, I think those are the two to really be aware of there. And then the Assembly Bill 70, which is on open meeting law compliance. And so that moves forward with things like a teleconference and how the internal mechanisms of the open meeting law move forward. There was so moving away from the government components, there was a new outdoor recreation board created within the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. That'll be somewhat interesting to see how they start to kind of look at as a counterweight to the Department of Wildlife. And then really a lot of those tax bills that were swirling with regard to room tax and other things, really, they fell by the wayside as the legislature moved forward with just simply looking at a modified business tax. Now, I'm happy to answer any questions. I guess I would be remiss if I did not mention that it's later on your agenda, but I am switching law firms. I am going to a new law firm. I'd love to keep your business going forward, and that's on the agenda. But this is a good opportunity for me to switch to a small Las Vegas law firm that is going to open a Northern Nevada office, and we're going to be a little more focused and a little more nimble. So happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wadhams. Mr. Caroselli. Now we turn my mic.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Did the Reno Rodeo Association give any indication after they do all the planning where they might get some financing to the project?
No, I mean, and they didn't give any indication. I was watching those budget items very closely, and really, like I said, it popped at the end. So there wasn't testimony or sort of public records regarding what they intend to do following this $1 million infusion for the planning. I've seen probably the same things you guys have in the paper about how they want participation from a lot of entities, including the RSCVA. But at least with regard to the budget process in the state, no, they didn't give any indication how that funding would move forward.
Do you think they might be looking at the RSCVA for their $200 or $300 million worth of funding?
Do I believe that? Yes, I do. Certainly would believe that. In fact, their public statements to the newspaper, I think a couple of days ago, indicate that. And so I would be mindful that they are going to be looking for partners in the process going forward.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Wadhams? All right, seeing none. Jesse, thank you so much. We really appreciate all your time and effort you did for us down in Carson. So,
No, much appreciated. Thank you, guys.
All right. We are on to E4. Mr. DeLone, this is the RSCVA staff update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As the RSCVA heads into the last few days of our fiscal year ending the end of June, the outlook is positive for year-end results. For the fiscal year through May, which is the last month we have this data on at this time, the average daily rate is up by 11.1% for Washoe County over the same period last year. ADR for the 11 months through May stands at $115.45 for Washoe County. That is the highest it's ever been. Supporting the high average rate in this pricing model, occupancy has declined ever so slightly to 67.4% countywide as a result of increasing rate, and perhaps also partially due to the 7th worst winter on record, which closed Interstate 80 13 different days, of which 6 of those fell on weekends, which may have injured occupancy at some parts of the winter. Gaming win is up modestly by 70 basis points at $710,718,000 through April, which is the last month the data on gaming win is available today. The latest month statistics, one can deduce that our resorts are attracting a more affluent customer willing to pay a higher average rate and has a better gaming profile also than in previous times. Through the efforts of the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority and our friends there, and as well as the private public cooperatives such as RASC, which we all know is the Regional Air Service Corporation, air passenger counts at present are up 4.5% higher than last year at 3,547,000 for the 10 months ending April. We continue to gain traction in our 3 key markets of Los Angeles Basin, San Francisco Bay Area, and Seattle, Currently, we are reviewing, as we all know, the visitation and air service data and analytics through on strategy and preparation to launch a fourth new market in the spring of 2020. As a footnote to this report today, the Washington Post published on June 13th a very complimentary article about Reno Tahoe and our trendy arts and culture scene here. That galvanizes the growing reputation and popularity of our destination while creating a lot of buzz on the national stage through that newspaper. That article was distributed to the entire board last week. In convention sales, the team there, our fiscal year goal ending June 30 is to finish at 280,000 room nights of future business booked. We forecast, barring any adjustments, to finish at 288,000 room nights of future business booked, so ahead of our goal. Overall, the destination's consumed convention room nights, that is business that has appeared and gone in your hotels, this fiscal year through May stands at 527,000 as self-reported by the destination's top 10 convention properties. This is up 70 basis points from last year in the same 11-month period. Convention room revenue is up 5.3% for that same period, and that average daily rate in the convention market segment for those 11 months stands at $111.87. That's quite good. In tourism, this market segment represented by the third-party distributors, names you all recognize, such as Expedia, Booking.com, and others, the traditional travel agencies and wholesalers such as Southwest Vacations and others, is experiencing a higher ADR too. We anticipate by month end that the room night forecast in this tourism market segment will be around 751,000 room nights. We'll have the actual number probably within the first month or 6 weeks of the next fiscal year. On another note, we're happy to publicly announce the transaction with Washoe County on the transfer of Wild Creek Golf Course has closed escrow this past Tuesday, June 25th. We are no longer in the golf business. We'd like to thank Bob Lucy at Washoe County for taking our precious jewel of Wild Creek from us. The RSCVA is no longer the owner. Washoe County will in turn transfer a portion of the area to Washoe County School District for their new Wild Creek High School. That's approximately 75 acres, with the remainder of the 212-acre site transformed into a regional park and 9-hole golf course. I think also we owe a debt of thanks to our attorney, Ben Kennedy, who for the last 2.5 years has walked us through that tumultuous process. Thank you, Ben, for your stewardship. With the bond reissuance previously approved by this board, our long-term debt bonds have now been placed, securing a lower interest rate, saving the authority about $9 million in future interest payments on the $70 million in long-term debt, most of that carried by the Reno Sparks Convention Center from its expansion in the year 2000. That concludes my report for this section. Mr. Lucy?
Thank you, Mr. Villone, for that riveting,
captivating
report. And you're welcome. We really are happy at the county to take over the golf operations, as if we didn't enjoy doing just one course. Two makes it almost so much better. Mr. Larraguetta, will you take us into sales, please?
Yes, sir. Good morning. Please, if I could have you refer to the scorecard for your produced room night section. To echo some of Phil's prior comments, we had a very good April, very good May, and forecasting to finish strong in June. For month of April, gross produced room nights was 35,079 on a goal of 21,946. May also very strong with a goal of 33,797. The team came in at 55,137. Through June 24th, gross produced room nights for the fiscal year totals 281,628. And as Phil mentioned, we anticipate an additional 7,000 room nights turning definite by the close of business tomorrow, for a forecasted total of just north of 288,000. At a previous board meeting, staff was requested to provide a recommendation regarding the interbike cancellation. That being said, today, after our internal collaboration, we are recommending that we absorb the entire 2-year cancellation of 44,454 room nights for this fiscal year. I would also like to recognize the convention sales team for 2 additional compliments. The number of site inspections that we held this year versus last year, we just finished 2 this week to finish at 72 sites versus the prior year total of 56. In addition, another very significant accomplishment, of the 281,629 room nights that are currently on the books for this fiscal year, 104,000 of that was represented, or 37%, of new business. New business being defined as never been to the market before. A tremendous accomplishment by the team. The team has completed several activities the past 2 months in respective territories. Examples include, but not limited to, hosting meeting planners in MPI Southern California's chapter's annual installation gala in Santa Monica. Our Southeast director held a Mad Hatter Tea Party, which I attended, which was attended very well by 45 clients. It was a big hit. MPI Phoenix Awards Atlanta at the World of Coke, MPI WC in Toronto, a presentation to Bright Spot Meetings and Incentive, presentation to Frito-Lay, an account that has not been sourced in this market since 2013. We currently have Shelley Fine, Director of Business Development at an Esports Summit in Atlantic City, 10 appointments with various companies represented from that segment. International Association of Golf Tour Operators, which we are hosting in Northern Nevada in 2020. We just attended their meeting in Austin, Texas, and when the announcement was made that they are attending in Reno in 2020, it was very well received. We attended the USCBC Convention annual meeting, and we also attended a plein air meeting event in San Francisco with over 35 meeting planners. Lastly, there continues to be a significant buzz about the esports segment. As I mentioned, our Director of Sports Development, Shelley Fine, is currently attending a conference in Atlantic City. I've asked Shelley at the July board meeting to give a short presentation on a recap to basically talk about what esports represents, the pros, the cons, the challenges, and whether it's a relative segment for us to pursue in Northern Nevada. That concludes my comments. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Larraguette in regards to sales? None? Seeing none? All right.
Thank you.
Mr. Jimenez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For April's Tourism Channel monthly reported room nights, we were at 55,037 room nights, or a decrease of 10,052 from last April. This puts us just shy of 80% to the monthly target of 68,994. Year-to-date recorded room nights are 621,957. It does put us at 46,000 room nights behind last year to date, and this puts us at 87.4% to the target of 711,532 for year-to-date, and we're at 72% of the target of 863,468. The team's been pretty busy over the last 30 days. In partnership marketing, we've concluded a campaign with Expedia that ran April through June, and MailPound, which we targeted about 55,000 travel agents via a weekly promotion, webinars, and email campaigns. And we also introduced the market to a company by the name of Red Awning that has a distribution channel that's, we had a meeting last week with many of our hotel stakeholders. For the next 30 days, we'll be launching another campaign with Expedia to focus on non-West Coast, non-stop markets to promote package travel further out. So it'll occur in the summer, but it's not going to impact summer business. So we're not going to tinker with that, just further out bookings. We're developing a campaign to deploy in the next 30 days on the GDSs, Global Distribution Systems, with Sabre, the largest GDS company in North America. Trade shows, the team's been busy. We were at IPW with U.S. Travel last month, where we concluded 86 appointments with international tour operators, and we also conducted 25 media meetings and hosted a client event with approximately 25 customers who were in attendance. This week, we're concluding the IAGTO, International Association of Golf Tour Operators Conference in Austin, where we announced that we're going to be hosting the conference here next June, about 400 tour operators, and very important, as these are golf tour operators, which is an important segment for our hotel partners. In the next 30 days, since being summer in July, we're dark for conventions, so no travel to any conventions next month. FAMs, when we believe seeing is believing. We conducted a post-FAM from U.S. Travel's IPW. Mail Pound, we had a FAM with travel agents here also in June. In the next 30 days, we'll be hosting the 35th annual BLC group outing for some of our top customers, and all of our hotel partners are participating, or most of them are participating. And we also will be bringing in executives from Spirit Airlines and Volaris Airlines to participate in the Pro-Am at the Barracuda Championship Golf Tournament. On the China front, last month we attended the Brand USA Roadshow in Shanghai and Beijing. We attended the Active America China trade show in Alaska, and we also hosted here the Easy 2-Trip Golf Group for their second year of Chinese consumers. There was about 35 golfers that came and stayed and played a variety of golf courses throughout the destination. Currently, we have a media fam in market right now through Sunday. Journalists from Condé Nast Traveler, Elle, and the Shanghai Morning Post, which has a monthly, collectively they have a monthly circulation of 24 million readers. And also for the next 30 days, we'll be continuing sales calls, training, PR pitches, and social media campaigns throughout China.
Great.
Questions?
Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. Actually, I have a question. Mr. Jimenez, with all the work that we're doing with the China Ready product and the meetings that you're conducting with the Welcome China FAMs and whatnot, how are we measuring those metrics in regards to success of those FAM trips? Are we relying solely on the VOA, or are we relying on the properties to deliver that information to us? But I mean, I know you've put a lot of time and effort, and it seems that we've done a significant amount of FAMs, we've done a significant amount of meetings, and invested some money into that. Where are we seeing? How are we measuring that metric?
So there's a lot of metrics. We can measure social media, PR, distribution, and room nights, the ultimate measure. So the properties are self-reporting room nights, and through the end of April, fiscal year to date, we were at 6,100 room nights. Last fiscal, we're at almost 4,200 room nights in this fiscal. So we're ramping up on the busy months right now. April through September are the busy travel months for the Chinese travelers. So hopefully we'll see some more pickup. It was impacted no less by the tariffs and the economy in China. The whole country's been impacted for travel from China. We've made a decision to continue this throughout this fiscal year, continue to monitor China. We've taken our foot off the pedal a little bit, but we want to be ready if this thing comes out positively. We're still in play. When we made this decision in December of 2017, we looked at it a 3-year plan. We're really just about a year into it, and we've got everything in place, the right pieces in place, so that when this thing comes through, we'll be ready. There's still 55,000 airline seats coming to the West Coast weekly from China. United, American, and Delta have stepped up their airline seats from the last 2 years. So as we know, airlines don't create demand, they follow it. So if they're increasing their seats, that's because those planes are being full. What's being impacted in China are the second and third tier cities, which those visitors don't really have the 10-year visas, and they're more impacted by political rhetoric and also impacted by traveling in the group business, which is a series business. But the ones that are traveling are the FIT travelers that have the 10-year visas in the larger cities. Unfortunately, those are tougher to track, FITs.
Art, share with the board, what concerns do you have about the market?
And the only concern right now is if we back off and this thing settles down with the tariffs, we've just wasted a lot of resources. But the big concern, and it's not just us, it's other CVBs that I speak with, is the tariffs. But the only glimmer of hope is that the airlines are projecting to bring in more seats into the market. But the big concern is the more we go on the digital consumer side and promote to FITs, those are hard to track.
So outside of China, I mean, obviously, are we focusing on Asia, Singapore, in different countries outside of the Chinese government that wouldn't be affected by the tariffs that might be beneficial for us?
You know, with the resources that we have right now, it would be difficult for us to go into those types of markets. You know, I would like to go more into Mexico or the UK, but right now we're focusing on specifically hardcore on the China market. It's just we just don't have the resources to go into all those markets.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. Any other questions? All right, seeing none. Ms. Isaac, you want to take us through some marketing?
Yeah, good morning. I wanted to draw your attention to the report on Miss USA. This is a follow-up to last month's report and presentation that we did on the results of that promotion that we did with them. As you recall, we had approved $350,000 to the organization pending some results on specifically paid room nights. We received that report after the last board meeting, and that information is included in your packet. As a review, they fell slightly short of the $2,000 room night commitment at 1,806 room nights. According to the scale that we had in the agreement, they reduced their fee by $17,500, so they were paid $332,500. They did, on the other side, however, over-delivered on the impressions and the number of minutes that we got exposure on their telecast. So if there are any other questions on that.
Any questions from the board in regards to this? All right, seeing none, no. Go ahead, Ms. Isaac. Is that
Okay.
it?
Just a couple,
Oh.
sorry.
I have a comment, I think that makes the room nights awfully expensive that we, what do we call it, that we subsidized. So it doesn't appear that we made too much money.
Thank you, Mr. Caraselli. Ms. Isaac.
Just a couple other things to note. We are currently working with BBK, our integrated marketing agency, to evolve our leisure creative campaign to sort of freshen it up a little bit. We'll see some of those results at our Director of Marketing meeting that we're going to hold on July 10th. Everybody's invited to come to that. And that will be here in the boardroom from 3 to 5 on the July 10th. We're getting ready to start our fiscal year 1920 media plan, and we just finished up, I guess June 23rd was our last flight, and then we'll be coming back into our advertising schedule, which starts July 15th. And we'll be pretty active until September. That's all I have to report.
Thank you, Ms. Isaac. Any questions for marketing? All right, seeing none. Mr. Chisholm, anything to report on budget or operations?
No, that'll be covered in the agenda item.
Okay. All right.
Corporate
so-
scorecard?
Yeah, corporate scorecard.
Or, yep. For the month of April, just some highlights. Overall occupancy is at 65.9%. That is down 5% from the April previously. However, average rate is up in the month of April at $116.97, almost $117. That's up 7.3% from the April prior. Taxable revenues are at $32,227,000, up nearly 3%. Air passenger counts for the month of April up 3.6% to 337,000. I covered year-to-date through April. Overall occupancy, 67.4%, down just 4.9% from the year prior. However, as reported earlier, average daily rate through April stands at $115.14 for the fiscal year. That's up 11.3%, with taxable revenue at $329,246,000. And as stated earlier, through the year, air passenger counts are up 4.5% through April at 3,547,000.
Thank you, Mr. DeLone.
You're welcome, sir.
All right. If there is no questions, we will move on. We've in the agenda. We are now on to, excuse me, get myself organized here. We are now on to Executive Legislative Committee recommendation for regarding the CEO goals and process for awarding bonus in the fiscal year 2019-2020. So with that, Mrs. Rezek is not here with us today. What's that? Phil? So Mr. DeLone, you will give us a brief presentation on this.
Yes, sir. The executive and committee has met on 2 prior occasions over the last 2 months on this topic, and it's customary at this time of year to establish primary goals and objectives for the CEO, which also filter through the senior department heads and our organization as an entity. The first traditional goal is visitation and destination awareness in fiscal year of 2019 and 20, the fiscal year we're going to start on July 1. Our target goal is 1,231,000 total room nights from our 3 primary markets of the San Francisco Bay Area, Los Angeles Basin, and Seattle. And that represents an increase of 1% in the Bay Area, since we have fairly good saturation there, 4% in the LA Basin, and 2% in the Seattle market. In tourism sales, headed by Art Jimenez, our target is to increase that market segment by 2% over what the actual year-end numbers are effective June 30. And we won't have that number because it's reported back to us via our hotel partners for a couple of months yet. We're estimating that the year-end will be 751,000. It may be higher, but we want to tap that for another 2% increase in the next fiscal year. In room night growth through convention sales, 260,000 room nights was our goal in fiscal year 17 and 18. We met that goal, and actually, due to the big bump we got in that year from the Interbike booking, we finished that year at 314,000, somewhat of an anomaly since Interbike, I think, was a 60,000 room night booking, and we all know what happened to that as the years progressed after the first experience. This year, 280,000, and we think we will get that to 288,000, and we are being a little conservative with our number at 290,000 room nights this coming year. We feel confident we can get to 290. We hope to surpass it, but with a little uncertainty in the economy, we want to be conservative there, and the committee concurred with that conclusion. Client satisfaction. This relates with our partners at SMG, who are not here today. They're busy with the Reno Rodeo. Traditionally, we have very, very good results from our customers through surveys. We survey each and every group that comes to either the Convention Center or Reno Event Center, Bowling Stadium, and the Livestock Center. We get good to very good to excellent marks. And on a scale of 7, we want to make sure that that client satisfaction rate stays at 5.5 or above. Facility efficiency. Again, using our partnership with SMG and Savor, we want to lessen the losses at our facilities over time. That's a key priority. And also, we believe at the Reno Event Center, for the first time in that building's history, we're actually going to turn a profit there, a small profit this year. So we'll see if that comes to fruition, but we think we can pull that off. Organizational sustainability. This is maintaining a solid executive management team. We have a solid executive management team with Sherry, Robert, Michael, Art, Esther, and Jennifer Cunningham, who's in Florida today at Spirit Airways. But we want to make sure that that team stays in place and give them the tools to excel at their jobs. Organizational health. We were so pleased this year that we were selected from quite a number of businesses in the Reno Tahoe destination as one of the best places to work. We want to maintain that. Hopefully, we will actually get the trophy rather than just being a runner-up over the coming year. And financial health, through Robert's leadership, maintain that we stay within our budgetary constraints and meet the expectations that are outlined for us at budget time through the coming fiscal year. That's it.
All right. Thank you, Mr. DeLone. Mr. Carosella, you are the chairman of that board. Do you have any comments you'd like to make in regards to the process and how that went?
No, we don't have to make a comment. Thank you. The Executive Legislative Committee voted unanimously to approve the goals and objectives that Mr. Phil DeLone just told us about. So basically, we support it 100%.
Great. Thank you, Mr. DeLone. Thank you, Mr. Caroselli, for all that. Any further discussion? Mr. Dillard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have one question regarding strategic priority number 1 in terms of our 3 primary markets. I think it was
San Francisco, or the Bay Area, Los Angeles, and Seattle.
And my question is, there was a growth rate attached to each of those.
Yes.
So what is the relative marketing spend change as it relates to the expectation of room nights for each of those markets?
The increase in the Bay Area is 1% over actual, 4% in the LA Basin, 2% in Seattle. Seattle, as you know, we struggle a little bit with the air service. We anticipate growing the air service in the Los Angeles and Southern California basin. So, does that answer your question, or am I off?
I'm trying. Maybe wasn't clear. So, if we're going to grow Seattle 4%,
what's the tactic we're going to use?
Are we spending 4% more in marketing? Are we spending less in marketing to get that? What's the tactic and the amount of marketing spend for each of those?
Esther, you wanted to address that for Mr.
A little, yes.
Dillard?
I think that we maintain a level of marketing in that region, and we continue to get really strong results in the visitation to our website and the engagement on our website. So we know that there's interest. We also know from the airlines that there's interest in adding seats, and they are, in fact, adding some seats. So we're really hoping that the supply will be there to get the demand. I mean, we've got the demand there, so we're really hoping that that's the key, is to get those seats. So we're going to maintain what we've got going in the market. We're not increasing.
So am I understanding that we're going to spend the same as we did this year with the expectation of growing 4%?
Yes.
And how about the other 2 markets?
So Los Angeles is such a large market from just sheer numbers, and it's a growing market as well, high interest from it. And we are also anticipating some additional air service in both, I think, Burbank and Long Beach. And so we think that we can easily make that prediction. In San Francisco, talking about that, it's a mature market. We already have very, very good, strong numbers from that market, so we're not anticipating large growth from that. So that's why we're maintaining that 1%.
So no additional spend, and we're going to get growth in those markets. I guess that's what we're saying. That's what I was just trying to perspective. Fully support the committee and the recommendations. I was just trying to put it into perspective of how much are we spending.
Yeah, so we didn't increase our budget for strictly media and promotions in this next year's budget. So we're going to kind of fine tune what we're doing, and hopefully those kind of changes will get us results.
Great. Thanks very much. Thank you.
One other comment. Erica Olson from On Strategy attended the meeting, and she made sure we were following the guidelines of our strategic plans. So that was another plus.
Great. Thank you. Any other further discussion as it pertains to the goals? Oh, Mr. Sturbins.
So when we approved the budget, kind of tail ending to Lee's question, there was a lot of money going towards air service, correct? Or budgeted towards air service?
So we have 2 funding mechanisms. We have $1.5 million within the RSCVA budget for air service mitigation. And we also fund RASC for an additional 50,000. Now, we don't always spend the 1.5 million. Matter of fact, I don't think we've ever tapped it for its entire budgetary depth.
Well, I guess my question is, so the monies that are available to go after additional air servers to grow
Absolutely.
those markets that we're
That's,
targeting?
that's correct. And so, for example, later in the agenda, we have a request for funding for Houston, for United Airlines, which wants to expand service from southern Texas. And today, Mr. Murdoch and Ms. Cunningham and other members of the airport authority are visiting with Spirit Airlines for increased service from Southern California and Las Vegas.
So I guess it'd be fair to say there are investments going into growing markets.
Yes, right. And we're also in conversation with JetBlue on expanding their service. They are considering Boston nonstop to Reno, another midnight flight. But their flight out of New York's been very popular with over 80% load factors, so they want to look at Boston. That wouldn't come on, though, Mark, until April of 2020, I believe.
All right, any other further questions at this time? All right, seeing no further discussions, I'm looking for a motion to accept the current recommendations by the Executive Committee for the goals for fiscal year 2019-2020. I have a motion by Mr. Dillard, second by Mr. Sturbins. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. All right, we are on to now G1. This is Finance, Mr. Chisel. We will open the public hearing. This is a public hearing to review and discuss and possible action regarding the recommendation of the Reno-Sparks Convention Visitors Authority Board of Directors to adopt a proposed amendments to the authority's transient lodging tax rules and regulations. Mr. Chisel.
Robert Chisel for the record. This is simply a change in the regulations to match the federal government's government procurement card so that we will match their rules for identifying what is a federal stay and is therefore tax exempt.
Any discussions in regards to this? All right, this is a public hearing. I have no public comment signed in. Looking for public comment. Seeing none, we'll close public comment and bring it back to the board. Looking for a motion.
To approve.
I have a motion from Mr. Caroselli, second from Mr. Sturbins. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item G2, this is a public hearing as well regarding the approval and resolution and adopting the budget augmentation for the Reno-Sparks Convention Visitors Authority for fiscal year 2018-2019. Mr. Chisel.
Robert Chisel again. This is to adjust the budget for the current fiscal year for actions that have taken place during the year. Just quickly to summarize some of the changes that have taken place. One, as we have discussed earlier and in the budget presentation, the way SMG does the management of the food and beverage was different than when we had Levy, meaning we incurred all the expenditures and the revenues in our budget. This is to match that, so we're increasing our revenue expenditure and expenditure items by over $2 million to match the increase in food and beverage that is coming in. Overall, the net effect to our facilities will still stay within budget as presented last month and as SMG has indicated. There's also movement of money for Wild Creek. We had anticipated Wild Creek would have transferred by February of this year. Unfortunately, as you just heard, it just was this month. Therefore, there was increased cost for the effluent for the additional months, and there was some additional costs for some of the pumps that had issues during that period of time. There was increase in community grants. Revenues in the Lake Tahoe Basin are higher than anticipated, so we're increasing those revenue line items. And then also the movement of contingency funds for the support of the Miss USA that was at $350, even though it will be at a lower amount as indicated. In the debt service fund, we're increasing expenditures for $170,000. That was for the refinancing and refunding of our bond. it is coming in through the proceeds of the bond and going back out. In here, it's 170,000. Our latest numbers indicate it's going to be about 135,000 for the refinancing and refunding. And that is primarily the major items in the budget adjustment or augmentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chisholm. Any questions or discussion at this time? Seeing none, I'm looking for a motion to accept.
Move to approve.
I have a motion from Vice Chair Lawson, second from Ms. Silver. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, we're on to item G3. This is the RSCVA travel policy and procedures. Mr. DeLone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have, as senior staff, in consultation with our board, all of our board members, we have reviewed our written travel policy and procedures, and we have brought those up to an improved standard. I think some of the major changes that the previous administrations had, for example, they had authorized that on certain business trips you could fly business class or first class, and that's really not in our practice under this current administration. There isn't a board member or a staff member that has ever flown first or business class. Our practice is we're first class people that fly coach. And so we have taken any reference. You like that? I was waiting for the delayed response.
I'm still looking around for the first class people. In any case, we've taken out any of those. It's just, as a public entity, we have the public's money in our trust, and we don't believe that those types of policies should be in our official travel and policy and procedures. So we've removed those. Great. And I think, Mr. DeLone, I think these are wonderful changes and to absolutely update our policies and procedures as we move forward as an organization and continue to grow. These are the necessary changes that need to be made to kind of compete with today's society and maintain that transparency with the public. So seeing that, are there any discussion about the changes that, most of you have been briefed, they're all in the staff report for more detail if you would like them. But if not, looking for a motion to accept.
Move to approve.
I have a motion from Mr. Caroselli, second from Mrs. Silver. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, we are on to item G4. This is relocation of RSCVA offices. Mr. DeLone.
The RSCVA has a signed binding lease on our office space here in this building that expires in October of 2023. The landlord, Robert Roth, has approached us and has asked us if we would consider moving just across the parking lot to a brand new freestanding building that he is willing to build to our specifications and needs, which would also include our own private boardroom that we would not have to share. There would be no change to the lease terms. We currently pay 90 cents a net square foot, which includes utilities and janitorial service. And he was asked that to accommodate his request that he would build this building for us. We've reviewed the plans and the site plan with him. We would then, in turn, just move across the street. He would pay for the relocation. If you ask, well, why is he interested? It seems our neighbor Access for Health, which is also his tenant, needs more space and may pay a higher lease rate than we do. And so they would move into our space that we vacate. We've had a number of meetings with him. He's met with the senior staff. We don't see any real downside to this other than the day or two it'll take us to move. And he, as I said, would pay for the relocation. He would have that office open April of 2020. How he's going to get it built so quick is a miracle, but
not our problem.
Not our problem. Then There has been some discussion, and I'll just voice it now, that, well, perhaps we should look at building our own structure on convention center property. And we're not prepared to go into that discussion today, but if that were a future plan, it would take us at least 2 to 3 years to get that going with design and construction and so forth. So by going with this proposal from our current landlord, it kind of meets a few needs over the next few years.
Great. Thank you, Mr. DeLone. And so as we're stylized today and agendized is basically, the item is to relocation of the RSCVA offices. And based upon the proposal that we've been submitted, we could potentially talk about discussions of relocation of the process. In detail, we could not do that, but what we could do is ask if the board would, what the board's preferences would be, whether to continue to proceed with discussions with Mr. Roth or also look at some different alternatives and maybe for a future item, bring that back to the board for further and greater discussion as those talks mature. So are there any others? Vice Chair Lawson.
So I think the relocation immediately to move across the parking lot is a good idea. I do want to consider moving over to the convention center. We talked about this for the last, 8 years that I've been on this board, 7 years anyways. For the long term, it makes sense to me to be in the other building where the action's going on, where our employees will feel the vibe of the whole thing. I think it can only help in the long run. But in the short term, I think that this makes a lot of sense to move across the way. So I'll make a motion to approve the relocation into the new building provided by our current landlord.
All right. Yeah. Further discussion, Ms. Silver. Microphone.
I'm sorry.
Thank
Mr. DeLone, just a quick question. It does make sense to me. It sounds like a great location. Will there be additional parking that comes with the site?
Yes, 100 more spaces.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Any further discussion? Mr. Caroselli.
Mr. DeLone, with all the conversation and vetting you've done of the potential move, what are you and your executive's opinion?
Well, I think we should move. There's no, especially there's no change in the lease rate, and then also the landlord's going to pay for our relocation, whatever those expenses were. So, our costs going over there would be minimal. We would have to, of course, even though we get a new boardroom, we may have a small expense of having a board table purchased, that type of thing. But the landlord has been very easy to work with and very collaborative, and it meets our needs.
All right.
And gives us breathing room to then in turn decide if we want to do something at the convention center on our own offices down the road.
Great. All right, any further discussion? All right, I have a motion. Looking for a second. I have a second from Ms. Silver. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, Mr. DeLone, we are on to G5, Legislative Services. We did hear already from Mr. Wadhams in regards to this. I think most of the board has been prepped on this discussion. I will open this up, and I'll just kind of carry this myself this time. Obviously, this is housekeeping for us. Mr. Wadhams has represented us as an attorney of the law firm of Fenimore Craig, and is now moving to the law firm of Black and LaBello. He's looking to maintain his services with us in RSCVA. He has been an asset for us, I believe, going forward, and I think continued representation of any organization as it pertains to legislative matters, even in between session periods, is important, because a good majority of the work that is done prior to session and during in the interim. So it would be my recommendation that we maintain our representation with Mr. Wadhams and continue on to his new firm at Black and LaBello.
Is that a motion?
I will make that in the form of a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. All right, Mr. Dillon, are you going to do the Houston Air Service for us? Or Mrs. Isaac?
No, that's fine, I can do it. Currently, we do have through United Airlines partial year air service that brings 9,900 air seats a year to Reno Tahoe. United Airlines wants to now increase their schedule to be an annual service that would bring nearly 20,000 air seats annually to us. It's the request of RASC, the Regional Air Service Corporation, of which we sit on the board, to support United Airlines' expanded Houston service, and the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority is also in favor of it. And so we're recommending to this board to provide RASC, who will then in turn provide United Airlines a contribution of $100,000 for air service mitigation and marketing from Houston. That service would start in the end of August of this year.
Great. Any discussion? Mr. Caroselli, being RTA member.
I move to approve.
I have a motion from Mr. Caroselli, second by Mr. Sturbins. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Moving right along. Everybody's so, we're just not playing to the audience today.
I think we're done, sir.
I think we are done. We don't have board comments on here today, so.
So, in board comments, that since it's not on there, I'm just gonna ask that we bring back a plan for moving across the street, some financial and bonding ability, what a bond payment might look like.
Across the street to the
To the
convention center.
property where we own it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You know, and one other thing I'd like to point out too is, that, you know, in the discussion we had earlier in regards to augmenting the budget as it pertains to Miss USA, we really didn't have a specific specification in regards to those types of events and how those are fed to us here at the board and how the organization processes, because it really isn't an event sponsorship and it really isn't a sales convention of some sort. It kind of was this own separate entity. So what I'd like to do in future is kind of go back and revisit our unsolicited proposal policy and how we go about doing this, because obviously we've had to augment our budget for $332,000 to pay for this event that was very costly to us. However, I want to make sure that this is not opening a door for just whatever and just we'll see what happens kind of a deal, that we really have some measurable understanding that it really goes back to cash room nights, because this organization is based around cash room nights. So I feel that we need to revisit the policy and really tighten that up and be a little bit more conservative about how we approach those proposals, because it was a little bit loose. And I would prefer that we do
So
that.
we're already there, and we'll be prepared at the next board meeting to make that an agenda item with recommended language. And we've already read the existing unsolicited proposal language that Ben Kennedy wrote, and it's very thorough. But we have added a paragraph with some language there addressing exactly what you just discussed.
Great, thank you. Mr. Caroselli.
Just a comment about air service. I think any dollar that we spend in increasing and improving our air service to this community, for Phil's remarks a few minutes ago, is the best money we can spend. We get the greatest return.
Absolutely. Ms. Silver?
Just a quick question about Miss USA. Excuse my ignorance, but are they due to come back, or was that it?
That was it.
Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other comments, I have no public comment signed in at this time for public comment. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.
66 minutes.